At some point, you have to be able to say, it is what it is, and it's called cancer.
Alan and I have been conscious and deliberate in our use of the word cancer and the use of the word die.
If you use euphemisms to make it sound less bad than it is, then all you're doing is under-preparing yourself for the realities and for how best to deal with it. The first time the issue even came up was when we were having one of the tests. They had discovered the tumor and had been able to get a biopsy, and of course I remember the doctor saying, "You know what that means?" And I said, "I know what the possibilities are." And that was sort of my approach to being introduced, if you will, to the fact that cancer had just entered my life.
Alan was sitting on the table, and it was Dr. Sherman, and basically said, well, we're going to call this what it is. You know, you have pancreatic cancer. And it was like I felt I had been plunged into a pool of ice water. And I looked over at Alan, and he looked over at me and he mouthed the words, "It'll be okay." Because he saw the tears start to well in my eyes. But then he had the surgery, and we just thought it was going to be a slam dunk. You know, we thought, okay, cancer, everything was supposed to be good.
Prognosis was very
prognosis
positive
was good,
at
and
that
have the surgery, and then she came and said, well, Dr. Howard would like to meet with you in the special room. That's never good news when you're asked to go into the special room and you walk in, and
that's the first time I heard that.
Yeah, the special room.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, and there's nice soft couches there and lots of Kleenex. Yeah. And it wasn't the news we wanted to hear. They said we can't operate.
The daily experience is as varied as the number of days since I've known of cancer in my life. And I would say that even though there have been some nights that have not been terribly restful, by and large, I've been able to sleep reasonably well and get the rest I need. In fact, I sleep a lot, but that's partly the medications that you're on, and you just find yourself sleeping your life away sometimes, it seems like. Most mornings now, it's you wake up and you sort of do an assessment. It's like, okay, what's today gonna feel like? Do I hurt here? Do I hurt there? Okay, well, I'm laying here, I haven't moved yet. Okay, now I gotta get up, all right? Do I hurt here? Do I hurt there? And you go through this process, and you some days it's like, oh, okay, well, so far so good, I feel pretty good. And then you go downstairs and get some breakfast, and 30 minutes later, you're as sick as a dog. And you're nauseated, or you're in pain, and the pain meds can't quite catch up yet, and you just sort of yo-yoed back and forth in that sort of world of how the rest of the day is gonna go. And that's what the days are like, because day to day, hour to hour, it continues to toggle back and forth. Good moments, bad moments. For someone who has spent much of their lives structuring their life so that they're in control, that's particularly a struggle, because the ability to avoid oncoming issues, the ability to do things in an appropriate way to minimize the outcomes, is just how a scientist sort of approaches his world. And now all of a sudden, that doesn't work. It just absolutely doesn't work, because it might work for this 20 minutes, and the next 20 minutes, what you found worked for the previous 20 is no longer working. Yeah, I sometimes wonder how someone who has only known the Lord for a very short period of time and walks into these sorts of circumstances is even able to cope at any level, because it's quite clear to me that one of the things about walking with God for a long time is that you develop that relationship that has the power that comes from that relationship and its duration. You learn to trust because He's trustworthy, and He's trustworthy because He's done it over and over again. And the more you see Him be trustworthy, the easier it is to trust Him, even when it's a really bad one. Yeah, I don't for an instant not believe that I could be healed tomorrow. Just in an instant. But only if that suits God's purposes.
Contentment comes from faith. Faith comes from trust. Trust comes from relationship. And relationship comes from walking the path together and knowing that God is walking this path with us. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's not going to be tears and that it's not going to be sad, but God will walk with us, and He does every day. It's been amazing. I don't know that I've ever sensed the presence of Jesus Christ as real as I have in this past 9 months. That peace comes, that contentment comes in knowing and trusting that God is who God says He is. The contentment isn't with the cancer. The contentment is having a Heavenly Father who says, I will be faithful.
The hymn, "Be Still My Soul," the Lord is on thy side. Bear patiently. And that's where we're living. Patiently bearing.